Hey, it's me, Hannah. The project I'm starting on today is a little bit different than the sewing projects I've been fixated on recently. I got into the sort of fantasy core aesthetic, the main character energy, the living my best fairy tale lifestyle trend because of the Lady Knight movement that characters like Éowyn from Lord of the Rings and Sir Bran of Tarth from Game of Thrones, along with influencers like Lauren Does Cosplay, Honey Swords Cosplay, and Sherston the Golden, who have propelled themselves into, well, at least the tops of my social media algorithms. And I wanted in on it. So all of this to say, today we're making some armor. I've collected a few pieces of metal armor and even leather armor from online and at Renaissance fairs. And I've even made my own chainmail pieces and scale mail pieces. Maybe I'll do a video on that down the road. But I don't have a breastplate, which I think would just be the piece de resistance to the full Lady Knight look that I would like to achieve. Unfortunately, my budget doesn't allow for me to buy a custom-made, handcrafted breastplate from a blacksmith, so I'm going to make one out of EVA foam. So I've never made anything out of this material before, but I watched a few videos and I bought a pattern from Etsy. I'll link to it down below. So I figured I could start there and, see where I can make it my own once I get a little more used to working with this EVA foam. So I went ahead and printed the template onto cardstock so that I could use these template pieces as a bit of a mock-up. So now I'm going to take these template pieces and trace them onto the EVA foam. I'm going to use an 8mm foam, mostly because I already had it. The pattern I got off of Etsy calls for anywhere from 2 to 8mm, and since I already had the 8mm, that's what we're going to go with. I also think it's going to make the piece a little bit sturdier and hopefully a little longer lasting. So we'll see. Different patterns will provide different insights on the best way to cut, whether straight on or at an angle or not a full cut, just to get the best fit possible. So this pattern is pretty easy. I just get to do a nice, even, straight cut. I don't have to worry about angling my box cutter in any which way, so that keeps it easy. Just straight, seamless cut all the way through. You don't want to have to make multiple passes through your foam. The 8mm is harder than I anticipated to cut through in one fell swoop, but I'm doing a pretty good job so far and I'm getting better with each cut. So with that, I'm going to get back at it and wrap up these pattern pieces. All right, so I've just finished marking the notches from the pattern pieces onto the foam pieces that I had cut out. I am now going to take some contact cement and use this to adhere the pieces together. And then I will use 1-inch elastic to connect little pieces at the side and shoulder seams so that I'm able to slide the armor on and off. I'm hoping that that will be enough. If the elastic doesn't work, I may need to look into Velcro or a button or something to that effect. But we're going to see how this plays out. I'm still following the pattern instructions as closely as I can. If all of that works out, we can turn our attention to some of the more fun finishing details. And then once that's done, we get to work on the paint and the weathering to make it truly look like armor and less like foam. But before we do that, we have to put it all together, so I'm gonna get started on that.
Cement would probably do a little bit better if I like spread it out on these edges rather than just using my squeezy bottle to make a line. So I'm just taking a piece of scrap foam and spreading it out before I let it set and dry. Let's see if this works any better. Thoughts? Great.
So trying to use my heat gun to get the breastplate to fit a little bit better to my form. And I am realizing that my contact cement techniques were not as good the first couple tries. So I am probably going to end up redoing the front breastplate pieces with the contact cement. And in doing so, I think I can place the two middle pieces a little bit better to reduce the bit of puckering that's going on here. So I'm going to finish letting the contact cement cure for the back pieces. I'm going to redo the front pieces and then connect the front and the back using elastic. And that will probably wrap up my work for today. And then tomorrow we get to focus on the fun, finishing, the painting, the weathering, things like that. So looking forward to it. Yeah, so that's not gonna work. I got so much makeup on the inside. Too tight. Too tight to put on. It fits me, but I think I'm gonna have to remove the elastic and replace it with, I'm thinking Velcro. It seems like Velcro would be the easiest for putting this on and taking it off. So I'm going to run out to craft store and pick up some Velcro, and then we'll pick up where we left off. All right, so I've got my Velcro, and now that I've removed the elastic bands from one side of the armor, and I've checked to make sure I can put the piece on more easily, I'm going to score the areas of the foam where I want to place the Velcro, and then use hot glue instead of contact cement to secure the Velcro to the foam. Okay, we are in there. I've learned a lot. There are a lot of things that I would have done differently even at this point, but I don't know that I'll be able to go back and fix it right now. So I'm going to keep pushing forward. Next, I'm going to start filling in any of the crevices that have been created at the seams with some quick seal. Then I can take a Dremel tool and clean up anything that needs cleaning, kind of smooth things out so that it looks at least a little closer to being just one piece of metal. From there, I get to prime and then paint and then weather, and then we'll have a full breastplate. So let's keep going. All right, so that didn't quite work flawlessly. I think if I did a couple more layers and also just practiced more and took time to get better at it, we might be onto something. But I think what I'm going to do is take my thinner EVA foam, actually I don't even think it's EVA foam, just thinner foam pieces, and kind of outline the neckline and armholes and bottom. I want to see if I can make just some sort of adornment, even if it's just, you know, a half-inch strip with some rivets or, you know, something like that. And you just use that to kind of cover up these seams to make them seamless. So I'm going to play around with that. I'm going to go ahead and get the neck hole, armholes, and bottom pieces on as well. And then we can figure it out from there. Remind me to bring out my dress form for Halloween next year. This has no business looking this good. Like, are you kidding? Obviously, it is not without its flaws. Don't look too closely. But I still have some weathering to do, so I'm hoping to kind of like lean into some of the weak points on this. But overall, I'm really happy with how the Plasti Dip and spray paint turned out. I kept scaring myself with the dress form out in my yard. I'm going to go ahead and spend the rest of the evening weathering using a black acrylic paint and a dry brush method to add some weathering detail along the seams and along the areas where there's some shadow and where some wear may naturally occur. I'm not looking for like an extremely weathered look, extremely used, battle-worn look, but you know, a little bit of detail to kind of make it look a little less plastic. Yeah, so it's already after 10, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. I know I can do better. Here's the thing, is I know I can do better. And I think that that's why I am disenchanted. Let's go through some of the things that I've learned throughout this process. Thicker foam may not always be the best bet. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to keep trying out different thicknesses of foam to figure out what works best for me. It's definitely sturdier, feels sturdier anyway. The first thing that I would do differently, and I might even go back and fix on this piece, is the connections that I have made. I think that I would have had a lot better luck getting strips of nylon and getting like D-rings or you know, rings on each side that I could use to like cinch rather than using or attempting to use the elastic and failing with the Velcro. This Velcro
was not of the highest quality, and I didn't line it up well, and just an absolute flop altogether. It didn't work out, but I still don't know if I'm happy or upset that I covered up like kind of crummy seams on the front. So I think with some more practice I can do a better job with the contact cement and actually like lining up the pieces really well and really intentionally. I also think filling any of the crevices that are left after connecting the contact cement, I could use some practice on. Also, just with the pattern, I think if I had used maybe the really thin foam that I had, whatever, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch foam to mock up the pattern instead of diving straight in with the 8mm foam, I think I would have had a better idea of what would fit. You know, I probably could have avoided these gaps on the side. I also think I went in a little too hard with my heat gun in attempting to cover up the kind of crummy seams, and it ended up messing up the way that these pieces lay on the breastplate. So, and then the weathering. I had really high hopes. I really thought that no matter what, weathering would tie it together, but it's just something else I need practice with. I've listed a bunch of my laments, but I'm actually kind of proud that I did this in like 2.5 days, and it's clear what it's supposed to be. I do really like this neckline with this piece over top. I think it gives a good dimension. I wish I could have gotten it a little flatter. Even then, like just the peaking of these seams and the, I think I got a little bit better at the weathering up on this part. The rivets on the sides and on the bottom. There are details about it that I really like. I think maybe I rushed it a little. So yeah, kind of a flop. You can't win them all. Regardless, I had so much fun, and if you had as much fun as I did, it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in 2 weeks for my next video. Take care.